Hi everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be sharing a personal story, which is my positive birth story with my second son. He was born 2 months ago, and I hope that you can take some inspiration from this story and actually benefit in some way, prepare yourself for birth, prepare yourself for labor, or if it's just something that you've been wanting to listen to for quite a while. Personally, these positive birth stories, I watched quite a few just before going into labor because I felt it really did help me get into that mindset, and I hope that it can do the same for you. So I'm going to get straight into it. My son, this is my second son I had. I will share the birth of my first son in another video. He was considered too large, on the larger side, I would say, from the nurses when I would go into my midwife appointments. So they suggested doing an induction. Now, I've already had induction with my first son, so it was nothing new to me. I was pretty much aware of the process, and personally, I did like inductions. I like inductions because sometimes it's nice to be able to know what's going to be going on when, rather than waiting and waiting and waiting for when your labor will naturally start. So for me, I knew the moment they will be starting my induction, I know that something will be happening after that. So for me, it was like a date to look forward to, mentally prepare. So I was due to go in on Friday, 19th May. I went in the morning and they found out that my name is not even on the system. And I was so gutted, and my husband as well, because mentally, I was already crying, and this time I wasn't prepared. I usually did a lot of hypnobirthing with my first birth, and I was upset that I wasn't able to this time because I was working full time. I already have a 1-year-old. And I just started maternity a few weeks ago. So, for me, I just didn't get that chance to positively sort of give myself those stories and that hypnobirthing and listen to positive affirmations. I just did not find the time this time. And because of that, I was feeling really anxious, really nervous. So when I went in, they said, "Oh, you're not due." For me, it was kind of annoying. Like, I just want things to start now. I just want to get it over and done with. But they had offered, they could give me a pessary. Now, a pessary is a tablet which they insert vaginally, and it's meant to soften your cervix. So I agreed, and I said, that's fine. They said, you can come back on Sunday, but until then, hopefully you can wait and see if there's some sort of positive reaction that you get from this medicine. It can soften your cervix and hopefully start labor. So I said, sure, that's fine. Let's just start with that. They inserted the pessary inside me, and bearing in mind, I can give birth a million times. I can go through contraction pains, but if you want to give me those intrusive checks and put your hands up inside me, I honestly hate it. It's just so uncomfortable, and it literally makes me anxious. So I asked for gas and air, and I believe you can ask for that in most hospitals. So if you don't like the checks, then you can also take gas and air. Those intrusive checks can be a bit daunting, but for some people, they don't feel anything. For me personally, it's not that I was very scared, but it's just something I just don't appreciate how uncomfortable they can be. Now, I took gas and air, and I was holding my husband's hand really tight. And it's so funny because we haven't even actually started the real thing. We haven't even started labor, and I'm thinking, oh God, I'm really not prepared this time, am I? Anyway, had to get that done. And just breathed in and breathed out with the gas in there while they put that inside me, and it wasn't too bad at all. And I thought, okay, that's fine, I can do this. And you know what? Throughout each check, throughout each process, I just kept telling myself, I'm one step closer to giving birth and having my baby in my arms. So every time that they would do something like this, I know I had the right to, but at the same time, with something like this, I know they had to start my induction. I said, okay, just try not to be scared, because being scared is not going to change the situation. Being scared is not going to make you feel any better, and being scared certainly won't relax your body. When you're scared, when you feel like you're in pain, then it actually tenses your body, makes you feel more uncomfortable, and therefore makes you feel like you're in more pain. So that's not something I was aiming for. So I went home that day on the Friday. They told me come back in on the Sunday. in order for us to see, and we can, you can actually stay on Sunday and we can start your induction that day if this doesn't work first. And I said fine. Now, I didn't really feel any sort of contractions, any pains. I had mild cramping here and there, but nothing that you could say is a regular contraction. And honestly, I was pretty gutted because I did want things to start. Anyway, I went to the loo probably around 4 p.m. and I saw that my mucus plug had started coming out, and it was in small bits. So throughout that day on Friday, I kept losing it in small bits. It looked like discharge, white/clear with a little tinge of blood, you could say, red blood. And yeah, I actually had to Google that to check that's what it is, because it was different to the usual discharge that I have. So I was quite happy that there is some progress going on, but in terms of pain and contractions, nothing much. I did then last minute think, okay, maybe I can drink certain green tea, do of this vaginal massage. They say that also helps stretch out your vaginal area for when you need to give birth. But honestly, nothing really worked, and I didn't really have the time. I know you are also told by a lot of people that having sexual intercourse can actually help induce labor, but again, just wasn't in that right mindset. And as many pregnant women can imagine, it's not the most comfortable thing when you are heavily pregnant. I was 39 weeks, by the way. So you can imagine I wasn't able to do any of that. Friday night went, Saturday came, the same thing happened. I just kept losing my mucus plug throughout the day, bit by bit, but nothing more than that. Slight cramps here and there. So essentially I knew I will have to go in on Sunday, and most likely they will need to give me something else to try things further. So Sunday came, I went in the morning, Sunday the 21st, and I told them the situation. They checked how dilated I was, and they said, you are barely 1 centimeter, which was gutting again for me. I knew that they will have to give me something else now, which means again, more intrusion. But again, I told myself, look, you can do this. You've done it before. You can do it again. And bearing in mind, even if you haven't given birth before, you need to understand your body is made for this. As women, we're more powerful than what we think we are. Our bodies know exactly what's going on. And sometimes, even if we are panicking, your body knows what's going to happen. Your body is made for this. We've been giving birth for generations and generations. It's just natural. It's part of nature. And it's something that we are totally capable of doing. We just need to give our bodies, some motivation, a bit of love, a bit of care to make the process much more easier for ourselves. So I wanted to keep my body as relaxed as possible, and I said, that's fine. They offered to give me these tiny rods, which would be inserted vaginally into my cervix. And they're called dilaplans. So they had about 4, and what they were meant to do with that was to basically insert that vaginally, again, to hopefully soften my cervix. And they were very thin, very small. But again, it's a more gentle and natural way of inducing your labor. So they said that these will slowly expand. They will take whatever sort of, the liquid inside the cervix. At that time, it would suck that in, and then they would expand like a sponge. And slowly over 12 hours, hopefully that's meant to sort of stretch and open my cervix, causing it to dilate and soften to help me prepare for labor. And I believe they put 4 or 5 rods in. I can't remember exactly. That process that process did take a while. It took about 10 minutes. Again, I took gas in there for it. Now, the nurse, she was, I guess, trying her best. But I did find that a bit more painful. When I spoke to the lady next to me on the bed next to me, she said, I could hear you, and it sounded like you was, like moaning slightly, that she was doing a bit uncomfortable. And she said, I had another nurse do it to me and I didn't feel anything. And I said, oh, okay. That means either she was really harsh or my tolerance is just different to the lady speaking to me. Either way, told myself, look, you're going to get through this. Again, you're one step closer. And even though you're not almost 1 centimeters, you will be to the point where you'll be giving birth and again have your baby in your arms. So I told myself, okay, that's fine. I did have a word with one of the staff members later, and I told them, I didn't really like the way that the nurse was handling. So in future, could I have somebody else? And also that's something I would like to advise you all as well, that if you feel that the nurse or the doctor dealing with you is being a bit harsh or upsetting you just don't feel comfortable, you have the right to request for somebody else to deal with you after that. And that's completely fine. You don't need to be scared about that. You don't need to feel uncomfortable about that. And that's what I did as well, just because I wanted that experience to be as positive and as gentle as possible, and I didn't want anyone coming in the way of that. So when they had the dialer plans in, they put that in probably around 12 in the afternoon, I guess, and they said that they would check again early morning, probably around 5 a.m. between 2 to 5 a.m. in the morning, to remove the rods and also check how dilated I am. So my husband, he stayed with me for about 2 hours, and I didn't really feel anything at that time. But I said, you know what, why don't you go? Because last time with my first baby, when I had an induction, I was at the hospital for around 4 days, and I felt this is going to be the same thing this time. I'm going to be here for ages, and I didn't want to tire him out on the hospital chair. So I said, you know what, you go home. If something happens, I'll call you. When he went home, around 4 p.m, I started feeling mild pains, contractions, you can say. But they were what you could call Braxton Hicks, because they started for a while, they started getting a bit regular, and then they will stop. So I just told myself, okay, this is not really where I want it to be. I then started feeling around 6 p.m. strong period pains, and they kept going on for about every half an hour. What I decided to do then was download a contraction timer and hopefully see, count my contractions and see how regular apart they are. And maybe I'm just going to actually find and see where the contraction app is on my phone so that I can share with you how it went. So yes, now I'm just going to read them out to you. So how this started off was from 7 p.m. was when I actually started recording them. They lasted for about a minute, and then probably after 10 minutes, I would get the next one. So every 10 minutes, I was getting them from 7 p.m. Then around 8 p.m, I was getting them every 8 minutes. And then at 8:30, I started getting them every 5 minutes. And at this point, when it came to the pain tolerance, I would rate it painful, like quite painful, but not to the point where I needed someone there, or, I couldn't breathe, I couldn't walk. I was walking around, I actually went to the loo in between, but then I decided I'm just going to lay down. So around 9 p.m, I started getting them every 5 minutes for sure, and they were definitely lasting a minute. So a contraction would come in a sort of a wave coming from the back, then around my stomach, everything would tighten, and then it would let loose again. So at this point at 9, I did feel okay, they're getting intense, but again, nothing which I would say, oh God, I cannot manage. It was, I would say, painful, like a painful period cramp. And then around 10 p.m, it's when it was getting really, really painful. I decided that I should maybe call the nurse. And just before that, I thought, you know what, let's just wait it out, because I didn't want to call her and then feel that, oh no, you know what, I'm nowhere near, it's nothing, because again, they needed to be much closer than that. So I waited, and I just tried to breathe through. I watched a video before that once, and it said, breathe in for a few seconds and then out for a few more seconds than how much you breathed in. So I would breathe in for about 3 seconds and then breathe out for 5 seconds whenever the contractions were coming. And I would do that in a steady pace every time the contraction came. I found that really helped with how I was managing the pain. Obviously, it doesn't actually decrease the pain, but it does relax your body. It does make you feel a bit more calmer. And in a way, it does make the pain less than if I was to sort of scream or moan or cry or, complain that I can't do this, I can't do this. I just didn't want to send any signal to my brain that I can't do this. In fact, I just kept telling myself, I can do this, I can do this. So what happened was that at 10:47, my water broke. So my waters broke, and gosh, I was so happy because I thought, wow, I don't need my waters to be broken artificially. Because artificially, what they do is they use this sort of needle. Sorry, not a needle. It's sort of those knitting sticks that like grandmas use sometimes to stitch up scarves and all those. So it was like those knitting sticks, and which they basically just put into your cervix and pop your waters. But honestly, I've heard that it's not painful. You don't feel them at all. So my waters broke and I was really happy. I could feel water trickling. Thank God I was on the bed. I was able to change everything and get that done. That's when I called the nurse and I said, okay, my waters have just broken. Could you please check how dilated I am? Now, she said I have to first take the rods out. And at that time I was happy that finally the rods would be taken out. Now she took the rods out. I took gas and air, and this time, honestly, I'm so happy during it. I felt like it was less painful because I know I'm getting even closer to giving birth. And I said, shall I call my partner? She said, no, not yet, because you need to be dilated quite a lot. And I was thinking maybe I'm 2 centimeters dilated. I hope I'm 2 centimeters dilated. If I'm not 1, then 2. And guess how much I was dilated? 5 centimeters. When she told me that, I was so shocked because I literally thought, how can that be that I was bearing all this time? That means, she said, you're literally halfway there. The nurse was so shocked. She said, are you okay? And I said, yeah, I'm fine. I was finding it painful. She said, you need to call your partner now because you're ready to give birth. And I said, oh, wow, okay. So I called my partner and my husband said he'll be coming as soon as he can within the next 20 minutes. He should be with me. As with my sister as well. I said my sister, both of them were my dream team for labour. And they were my labour buddies. But you know what the real thing is that I realised if I had known how dilated I was, I would have found the process more painful, because naturally I would have thought, okay, the more you dilate, the more painful it is, the more painful it's meant to be. But because I was so unaware, I didn't even realize how painful it actually was for me. For me, it was literally like, oh, it will be getting worse than this, but I'm not there yet. Whereas actually, I pushed through each contraction pretty well. So I was quite proud of myself, to be honest. And I thought, you know what, you're on a great track and you will be even better because you're halfway there. And if if you could bear with this pain, then you can certainly bear with the next, because so far you've done it all without any medication. So my partner, my husband, my sister, they both came probably around 11:30, and I went into the labour room, and we were all pretty happy. I had a sandwich. I was really hungry, and the nurse basically told me that now we just wait for things. If there's anything you need, let me know. If you need any sort of pain relief, let me know. And I said, that's fine. We explained that, epidural is a last resort. And then she said that there is also an injection called pethidine, which is a pain relief. But you can't take that too late into your labor. So I said, okay. So she said around this is the time where you should be taking it if you do want it. Because some of the possible side effects is that sometimes it can make the baby a bit sleepy when they're born. And I said, okay, if I am to, then I will take it now-ish rather than much later on. But I said for now, I want to try and push through without anything. So she said that's totally fine. It's around 12 midnight now. Monday 22nd of May. And yeah, I'm having some contractions. I would say they were getting more intense. And I keep using the word intense because if I kept telling myself at that moment painful, it just had so much negativity connected with it that I just didn't want to feel that. So for me, I just kept using more pressure, more intense. Those were the words I kept using at that time. Like, yeah, I feel like it's more intense now, more pressure. I'm feeling more pressure. I was taking gas in air when I had my sister on one side and my husband on the other side, and we were all just talking. Like we were having, we were literally telling jokes to each other. But when the contraction would come, I would need a breather. Around 2 p.m. around 2 a.m. is when I asked for pethidine because I felt it is getting quite intense for me. And I was taking gas in air pretty much regularly throughout the whole time, even between my contractions, because it is what was helping me get through. So she injected it into the area just between the side of my thigh and my buttocks, like just between that area. They injected, and she said that it should take about 20 minutes to kick in. Now, I don't know if it really helped or not, because I would say the contractions, regardless, did get more intense. But again, just kept telling myself. In fact, I said it out aloud, and I had my husband and my sister telling me the same thing, that I can do this. And I know it sounds funny, but I literally told myself I can do this. Every time the contraction came, I said, oh God, it's coming. But then when it went, I said, I can do this. I've got this. And I honestly think it really helped make such a difference to how I was approaching the whole situation. Then came probably what I would say was 4:30 a.m. And at this point, I just shouted, I think I need to push. And then I said, okay, that's fine, do what you need to do, we're here. And you're meant to push during the contraction because that's when the pressure is coming, and that is the best time for you to actually push your baby out. Now, for me, pushing, you need a lot of energy for that. And obviously, because of the gas in air, I was feeling quite sleepy, I would say not dizzy, but it does make you feel a bit high, a bit loopy. So I was sipping Lucozade on one side every few minutes just to get that energy. And I tried to push for the first, so when the contraction came, I tried to push as hard as I could, and it didn't obviously make much difference. I would say I pushed for almost an hour. Now, there are blessed women in this world that have pushed for 2-3 minutes and they have their baby. But for me, I knew I'd be pushing for quite a while because with my first baby, I also pushed for pretty much 1 hour. The nurse said, look, you don't she said, so the nurse was telling me, hold your breath and then push. But for me, what I've researched in my own time is that that's a very old traditional way of how women have pushed in the past. The actual way you're meant to push is just as if you're going to have a poo. And it may sound funny to you, but it's actually true. Every woman, in fact, even every man knows the feeling of when they need to poo. When you have a poo, you know that feeling comes before your body indicates to you that you need to go to the toilet. You get that feeling, and what you do is you push from your core. You push from down. You don't push from your mouth, because that's just going to blow up so many blood cells on your face, stress you out, tire you out the wrong way, and actually make you less and less energetic through each contraction, which is why most people end up with a C-section in the end. And I'm not here to say that there's not anything wrong with a C-section at all. Completely your choice. But if it's something you don't want to do, and you want to avoid because you want a natural birth, then you will actually lead yourself up to that if you don't push the right way. So it's not one of those things where you can read a book. It was literally the same concept as going to the toilet, and that's exactly the same pressure, the same area I was using on my body every time it would come. So I was completely ignoring the nurse at that time. She was very sweet, but in this regard, I didn't agree with how she was advising me to push. And I had already told my husband, by the way, they might tell us to push this way, but just, have patience with me if I'm pushing this way, because I know this is the best way for me to push. I was on my back, I was lying down, but I didn't have a problem with that. I felt a bit uncomfortable to be on my knees. For me, it was a bit too much. But what they did later was they raised the back area of my bed, so it was almost as though I was sitting on a toilet. And with each contraction, every time it came, I pushed as hard as I could. And it was very close because the head of the baby would like, they could see the baby after a few pushes, but it was never enough for it to push out fully, if that made sense. And also, I didn't experience the ring of fire. Now, I don't know if you've heard of the ring of fire, but they basically refer to it as probably the most intense and pressured part of the pushing stage, where you feel a lot of burning because obviously the baby fully comes out from your vaginal area, and that I would say is the most intense part of the process. But after that, literally a few seconds after that, or a few minutes after that, you would have the rest of the body coming out. But the crowning, the head bit, when that comes out, is when it can get quite intense for you. So I hadn't reached that part, and I knew that I've just got a short while before I can actually get there. Eventually came the ring of fire moment. We had a few more nurses coming in. They were also, helping me. They were sort of pushing my legs, my heels onto my butt, if that made sense. So I had my knees up, I was sitting up, and they were pushing it back just to help me push that baby out. And finally it crowned, and at that point I would say I did scream, but the scream wasn't a sort of screaming where I'm screaming in agony and pain. The scream was sort of helping me to get that adrenaline kicking in, and every time I was hyping myself up, they were hyping me up. And it was what I needed at the time, because you needed a lot of energy. So I just kept pumping myself, and I said, okay, almost there. I was sweating. My husband, his hands were trembling, and I was squeezing the hands really tight, but I knew that I had this, and this is just a few minutes away from having my baby, and that I will be able to get this through. Finally, after the crowning, I had just the rest of the baby's body, because that was quite hard as well. Again, I would say, in terms of pushing it out in one go. But finally, after 2-3 contractions, after just giving it my all, I would say that last push, I had literally pumped myself up as if I was the biggest, baddest bleep in the world. And I told myself, you know what? You are so strong, you can do this. And that's exactly what I did. I hyped myself up, and I told myself, you are so strong and you can do this, and you will do this, and you will prove it right now. And that's when I gave the biggest push in my life. And I screamed so loud, but the baby came out, and gosh, it was just a magical experience. And at that point, you just forget everything. Literally, you just forget everything. The baby's in your arms. It's the most beautiful feeling ever. You and your husband, you're both crying. My sister, it was just amazing. My sister, then she cut the umbilical cord, because she was really supportive at that time, and I just wanted to give her the honors on that day. And soon, a few minutes later, the nurse asked if I wanted to deliver the placenta naturally, or if she should inject me and have it come out. And I said, you know what, girl, just inject me, because I can't be asked now. So she injected me, and I had a little push. Honestly, didn't feel anything, because the placenta is much smaller compared to the baby. It didn't really feel anything. It just felt a bit like a big sort of blood clot feeling. When you have like a big massive blood clot come out sometimes during your periods, that's what it felt like. But I didn't feel any pain, and that was it. So that was my story of what happened from beginning till the end. And here I am 2 months later. I'm feeling better. In terms of my body has healed up, and now I'm able to finally start some exercising. But again, it's just something that, I wanted to share with you all. And I hope that you can actually just pick out from what I have been trying to portray throughout this message, is that the process will be the same, but you can change the way you write. You can change the way you write that story. You can use positive words, or you can use negative words, and that will have an effect on your body. Your body is so much more powerful, but you know what? Your mind is even more powerful than your body. So that's exactly what I did, and I used it to my advantage. And I think it honestly really did help me push through each pain, each contraction, and each time I almost gave up, I told myself, and I told them, literally gave them the task to the nurses as well, that you need to hype me up each time you think I'm giving up. And I believe you can all do it too. So if you're feeling nervous, if you think you can't do this, if you think the pain is too much, remind yourself, you've got this, you've got this, you've got this. Just keep telling that to yourself and just watch the magic that happens. Just watch how your mind, pushes your body, encourages your body to do the right thing. It makes such a positive difference. And I promise you, you will get through it. So thank you all for listening to my story. It was meant to be short, but I guess I wasn't able to achieve that. But I do apologize if you could hear my baby snoring at the back. It's the only chance I was able to record this. In fact, this was literally the 6th take I've done on this recording because I had some interruptions before. But please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Like my video, and also do comment down below any questions and your experiences on your birth stories as well. I would love to hear how you all handled them, and also for other viewers to see as well and take some positive inspiration. Again, this is my first video, and I would love the support. It's something I want to really build upon. I actually want to encourage more women to have positive births, so I would really appreciate the support in this channel. I've got a lot of exciting things coming up ahead, and I just want to create a platform for positive births to encourage mums, to give support to them, and just to make them feel heard and feel safe during this process. So thank you everyone, and have a lovely day.